I want to say one more thing about autonomous agents. I thought this was a very interesting quote about it, that the individual that wrote this has been working with the notion of autonomous agents and has found Ada to be very useful for that. Okay, there are some objections that are typically raised for Ada in the world that we find ourselves in. One is that we're stuck with the process. You know, our customer keeps us there, or what have you. We can't really embrace the emergence of the 3.0 world, the messiness, the human element, and so forth. One way of addressing this is something that's been brought over from the lean world only since 2004, but is really taken off lots of places. It's an approach called Kanban, which is implementation of flow, lean flow. And even though it comes from the manufacturing world, it's been applied in a virtual way. And I apologize, it'd be a whole nother presentation to go into what this means. But in a virtual way, which allows it to be used in a product development domain. Because, you know, Toyota really has sort of two camps of lean. They have lean manufacturing, and they have lean product development. And you can find books about both subjects. And there's differences. However, in any system development, it's useful to think in terms of there are elements that are more like manufacturing, and there's elements that are more like, you know, one-off unique product developments. In fact, we found in the work that I led at Lockheed that roughly 70% of the system could be thought of in a manufacturing sense in the code development. And again, that would be a whole nother talk. But we were able to get very high levels of productivity by exploiting the difference between the lean manufacturing elements of a system and the lean product development, or complex, would be another way to phrase that, elements of the system. But the Kanban is nice because you can apply that. Unlike, you know, with a lot of agile techniques, you have to sort of ditch the whole way that you used to do things and embrace, you know, Scrum sprints and you know, the iterative cycles and abandon requirement specifications and all of that. Okay. So the Kanban actually has proven to be, you can take it in any life cycle and implement it a step at a time, and it very much facilitates incremental improvement. This is an absolutely wonderful website. It's a blog entry about estimation in a Kanban kind of a situation. And it's actually much more scientific than estimation in your more traditional waterfall or even V kind of a life cycle. The book, it just came out last month, that is really the reference book on this, Kanban by David Anderson. Excellent book. Now, another objection here is that Ada is not dynamically typed, it's not efficient enough for the web, and so, that sort of a thing. There's some validity to that objection. And I'm not here to say that Ada is the only thing that you would ever use on the web. However, again, take the life cycle view. There's a lot of the time that the higher integrity of the Ada solution actually in a life cycle perspective buys you more. Okay, so to finish up, I just want to say there's really a couple of reasons I think that Ada is where it's at right now. One is that it was essentially designed for multitasking from the very beginning, but it only had you know, single-threaded processors, and so you know, you get into tasking task switching overhead and so forth. There were objections on that basis. I think the main reason probably is that a part of our culture in software is that we just tend to be naturally rebellious. And I think that's, by and large, is a good thing. And the very fact that a government imposed this language on the world just grated on people so much that when the imposition was lifted, that people just went to the opposite extreme. But we're a couple of generations of programmers since that was lifted. I don't think that's an issue much anymore. The other issue is, anybody recognize who that is? Albert Einstein. The other issue is that the strengths of Ada were not appreciated early on because they addressed the kinds of situations that we're in now. The things that I showed in the map, about the support for autonomous agents and high integrity and so forth, that are very useful in the world we find ourselves in. They were not appreciated or understood at the time, and we're finally in a world situation where it is understood. So to kind of close out, I'd just like to say that I think maybe one of the biggest impediments to us spreading Ada as it justifies is the image in our own mind of being a sort of an exile in the world, that Ada is sort of, it's been exiled from the world of programming. And it's kind of hard to get over that mindset. But Albert Einstein was a famous exile, and obviously he got over it. And so do we. Thank you. Any questions?
This kind of take you back to the start of your talk. You were talking about ontologies. Do you want to speak at all to semantic nets and the relationship between ontologies and semantic nets?
That's probably a bigger topic than I could really delve into. The only thing I would comment on that is that ontologies tend to be applied in very specific domains, conscripted kinds of domains, and I mean that's one of their strengths, and it's also one of their weaknesses. It keeps them from being an all-in-one solution, but I think there's more fundamental reasons why they're not an all-in-one solution, as we got into, which gets into the human element in virtually every system that exists.
Okay. I was wondering whether you felt there were ways to take on systems that are fundamentally complex in a software approach where you don't start off with an assumption you know how to solve the problem, but rather you somehow react to it and you have an adaptive system and it learns and blah, blah, blah. Is there anything there, or is that just science fiction?
The best that I know of in that area would be sort of a combination of taking the approach, the sense-making approach. Dr. David Snowden, they have tools, software tools for exploring situations. You end up with a much better set of requirements. And to me, the requirements are really where the game is won or lost anyway. It's not in the choice of programming language, it's getting the understanding of what you're dealing with in the first place before you ever begin. Not to belittle the importance of the language, of course, but those tools are very helpful for that. And then on the programming side, the Kanban cycle process is very powerful for that, because essentially what it does is it constricts an iteration loop, the amount of work in progress in an iteration loop, further even than Agile does. Agile, you'll have say a number of user stories or what have you in one iteration. Kanban goes down to one thing per iteration. So essentially it collapses. It's no longer an iteration. It's one of the reasons it works in other life cycles. So a combination of the sense-making approach and the Kanban, I think, are very powerful for that. Because you can begin with the life cycle you have and then just gradually improve.
Back up at the start of your presentation, you mentioned the governor of Texas, was it?
Yes.
So you got this guy,
Rick Perry.
with a website or a Twitter account or whatever.
It was a Facebook. Mm-hmm.
Can we believe any of that? I mean, is this for real? How do we trust this information that's coming to us?
Oh, that's a great question.
Autonomous agents, are they really there? Are
they
trustworthy?
Well, I begin with the assumption that it's not, and then just sort of say, prove it to me. And the fact that that Facebook page is saying, by being a Facebook page, is saying, I'm really interested in your opinion, and then he restricts the feedback so completely down to what he wants to hear that nothing else is acceptable, that to me answers the question. Okay, thank you.